Alrighty, we are back here in the home cockpit, and I just wanted to do a quick follow-up video to the first one that I did that was sort of the walkthrough tour of the entire thing, inside and outside. Just want to do a quick follow-up video that sort of answered the most asked questions that I had, or the most commonly asked questions. Most of them revolving around, I guess you would say, sort of the tech of the inside, or the flight deck here, essentially. Mainly these three stream decks. A lot of people had some questions about those and how they're running everything and how I have them set up and all of that. So wanted to touch on that, and then just a couple of other things right quick, and just kind of give a little further explanation of how they're set up here in the cockpit. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about was the little outlet over here that I have. A couple of people had some questions about this. This is real and actually works. It just has a plug on the other end that plugs into a power strip or the wall. And then it gives you two outlets that you can use for power. It gives a USB-C and then a normal USB-A output. And then I also took my headset and the wire to plug it in. I got a 3.5 millimeter TRRS, I believe, jack, one that supports you know, the three different marks on the jack, so that it includes microphone as well. Got one of those that's a panel mount. That's linked in the description. Got it off Amazon. But it's sort of it's made to be a flush mount on a panel. But what I did was just took this little outlet here and drilled a hole into it. And then I have a hole coming up from the bottom, and the little adapter comes up and through and then screws in, and basically just made it look like it was part of this entire setup here. And then it runs on a cable into the computer, into the microphone headset jack. And so just have to plug that in there, and then that runs that headset. It's the exact same thing over here on this side as well. So got a couple questions about that. The red button on each side are push to talk buttons. I do have the one mapped over here on the back of the honeycomb that I typically use, but this is great, you know, if you're up cruising and you're not using, you don't have your hands on the yoke, you know, or autopilot's flying and everything, and you just want to be able to engage the push to talk from over here. That's what this button does. These are wired into an Arduino, and then that is run through MobiFlight. And then basically what I have is these buttons mapped in MobiFlight to a VJoy input, and then that is in shows up in Microsoft Flight Simulator then as a controller, basically. And then I just map this button along with the buttons on both yokes, and then of course the red button over there as well. All of those are then mapped to one button on the VJoy controller, and then that I then have mapped up in vPilot, which is on these little screens up here. That's mapped as my push to talk. So basically, if you push this button, either button on the yoke or the red button over there, those will all activate push to talk to communicate with VATSIM. So that's what that button is. And then of course the steering tiller. I mentioned this briefly in the last video. 3D printed this top here, designed and 3D printed it in Fusion 360. And then underneath of it is a potentiometer. And I should just be able to go ahead and slip this off here and I can show it to you. And that potentiometer is then wired down into that same Arduino board that the push to talk buttons are. And then using MobiFlight, that is then set up in MobiFlight to then work as a normal potentiometer does, so that when you turn it back and forth, I then have that map to control the nose wheel steering in the simulator. So if you want more in-depth of exactly how I did that, let me know in the comments, and I can probably do a video on that. To learn how to do this, I had no idea how to do any of this when I first started on this cockpit. I just went out, found some videos from people who know how to do MobiFlight, looked around in some message boards, some Discord servers, asked questions, and that's basically just how I kind of figured out how to do it. But if somebody does want an in-depth video on it, let me know in the comments, and I can probably put one together for that. So but that is how the steering tiller is set up. And then, yeah, so on the actual flight deck itself then, everything is run with these three stream decks. And so right now they're actually on, but I created a multi-step process, multi-action button on them to make them look like they're asleep and that they're off, so that when I get in here to start the plane up, you know, they're not already on and lit up and kind of looks unrealistic and that sort of thing. So obviously the plane's on right now. We're sitting on a runway. I wanted to start it up just so everything was going, so you could see everything. But I did go ahead and turn these off. But essentially what's happening with them right now is they're just at complete brightness is down to 0 basically. And they're on a page on the Stream Deck where the top left button on each one I have is sort of what I call the power button. So if we hit each one of them, you'll see that it'll turn on, and I kind of have it step up where it gets a little bit brighter and brighter until it then finally goes to the main screen. The one on the right does the exact same thing. I just have my little logo on there too. I thought that was kind of fun. And then this main one here, and if you've seen the short on my channel, kind of paid homage here to Working Title and their work that they did on the Longitude to make it, in my opinion, the best aircraft in the game right now. But that's what happens on this main one, which is kind of what I consider the AP one, because it does have the rotary encoders and things like that. I'm gonna slide my seat forward here real quick. It has the rotary encoders on it, and it's just what I use for the main autopilot panel because it just works really well for that. But otherwise, these 3 Stream Decks, they're all running on AAO, Lorby AAO software. It is a payware. It's sort of like MobiFlight, SPAD is another one out there. They all sort of do the same thing. They're ways to map events and different things in the simulator to things like Stream Decks or other flight controls that you may have. You know, if you made your own throttles or you made your own yokes or something like that, they're a way that you can then map all of that stuff to work within Flight Simulator. And so this was almost, not quite, but pretty close to a plug and play type of a solution here, because all of these icons and buttons already came pre-built, pre-coded and everything in a great add-on on flightsim.to. I'll link it in the description, but it was made by a guy who used AAO scripts, and he created all of these buttons with the icons and all that sort of thing, and then with their actions already mapped to what they need to do in the simulator. So 99% of the work there was done, and it's a great add-on. It goes great with the AAO software, and only had to just tinker with some things here and there. I changed it to try and kind of fit, you know, my needs and that sort of thing, but otherwise it's just a fantastic little program. But yeah, that's what's running on each one of these. And then the AP one is sort of homemade between the Lorby AAO software. He has his own sample AP panel for the Stream Deck Plus. I guess I should mention that these two are both just normal 15 button Stream Decks, and then this is what is called the Stream Deck Plus. Again, I'll link all these down in the description, but he has a sample script for the Stream Deck Plus on his webpage, and so I used that, kind of got me started with it. But then I changed some of the, you know, the different, what the encoders do, what the touch bar here does. You can swipe that to basically change pages. You have multiple number of pages you can use here. So I'll run through these real quick. I don't want to make this video too terribly long, but I do want to show you kind of how it's set up. But you can see over here, I just sort of stepped through basic buttons and controls and things that are normally on the Longitude that you would see in the virtual cockpit. They're all now present on the Stream Deck. So I would come in to what we consider the electrical here with the little lightning bolt. This is going to have your standby power, your APUs, your batteries, all of that kind of stuff. The fuel is going to show you how much fuel you have, the fuel pumps, if you need to change where it's feeding from, left and right tanks, all that. That's the engine start button that has the run stop, and then the 2 starter buttons. Then it's got some gauges here that's going to show you the same thing down here on your MFD, but it's cool to kind of have it in there as well. The lights is going to be all of your different lights that you have. I also have them over here on the Stream Deck Plus, but this is another area that you can access all of those from. This is going to be all the anti-ice and pitot heat. This one here is just going to be different bearings and nav sources and things like that. I don't really use this one, but I kept it in here to, I guess you could say, kind of as a backup, you know. And then these three, there's some ATC ones that you can use. Again, not anything that I use it all off of the GTCs there. This camera one, I'm kind of working on putting a couple of buttons in here that are handy. This one view up here is for saved views. So this is the one that actually gives me the cockpit look, where we're looking out what would be the front of the cockpit, and then you've got the side views as well. So obviously when you start up a flight, it starts you inside of the cockpit, and then for my pop-out panel manager to work so that it can put all the screens on these different, or all of the different panels onto these different screens. That all has to run inside the cockpit. So once all that's finished, then I can just come in here, hit this button, and it'll take me to the outside view like I have here. So but then you can also go internal and external, drone, and all that sort of thing. So again, those are all built in using that Stream Deck plugin like I was talking about. So this down here is what I build as a power button. So like I said, when I want these to go dark, and basically if I end a flight, you know, and kind of, obviously, you know, you'd shut down the airplane. If everything is shut off, you wouldn't want these still on. So when I hit that button, it takes us back to basically this screen here where everything, the brightness is all the way down to 0. And then this top left button, like I said, is kind of the power button. And so again, if we turn that on, you'll see it boot back up and then take us back to the main screen. The other thing that I added, you won't hear it here because I don't have the audio playing through computer speakers or anything, but you'll see it when I do an actual flight here in the cockpit. It's the checklist here, and that basically takes us to a list of checklists that I've built in to the Stream Deck. And essentially, once you click one of these, it's going to play it. You'll hear it in the headphones, you'll hear it in the audio if we're doing a flight, you know, with a stream or a video. But those are all just checklist commands, and essentially what I did there was kind of took a bunch of different checklists I found for the Longitude, cut them down to where, you know, they made sense to be used in the simulator, because there's some stuff, you know, you don't necessarily need to worry about because it's not something that the simulator actually simulates. And so I cut down into a checklist that worked for my needs here for how I fly the plane, and then used a text-to-voice speech program to then have it read off just in a voice, you know, I think it's a female voice that I used. And so when you push one of these buttons, you're going to hear her say what the checklist item is in your headphones, and then it'll allow me then to make sure that I've done what I need to do with it, and then it's going to show that it's been checked, and then I can just go to the second one and basically just work my way down until I finish that checklist. And then when I go back home, again, that was a cockpit checklist, then there'll be an engine start checklist, taxi checklist, after takeoff approach, after landing, shutdown, and then there's also a go around if I have to go around. And so again, like I said, you'll see more of those as I start doing some flight videos in here, but that's essentially what it is. And then the other one on this side is just mirrored to do the exact same thing. And so it's kind of nice because I could pull up the checklist on this side and leave it up over there while still having all my controls over here that I can use. So that is how those are set up. The AP one, like I said, it's mainly kind of like an AP panel. It's got flight director, nav mode, heading, altitude hold, flight level change, vertical speed, VNAV, and approach, all on this front page here. And then each encoder here, each rotary knob, this one handles heading, this one altitude, this one speed, and that one vertical speed. The heading mode, you can push in on this encoder and it'll sync your heading mode. The altitude, you can just touch the touch screen there and you can change from 100 to 1,000 denominations when you're doing that. The speed, if you touch the touch screen, it'll change it from FMS to manual. And I think I may not be, well, I don't have, let me see. Oh, that should be working. That's interesting. Not sure why that's not working, but yeah, you can touch that one and it'll change it from FMS to manual to change your speed. So, and then vertical speed as well, obviously, to be able to adjust your vertical speed when you're using that type of flight level change. The second page here, again, I have all of my lights up here now on those buttons. This is the altimeter knob here, so you can change the altimeter reading. You push in on it, it'll standardize it once you're over 18,000 feet. These three here, basically, can't tell if that's getting great focus or not. If it is, if it's not, I apologize. I'm doing this with an iPhone, but these three right here, I basically tried to have those replicate the knobs that are typically below the GTCs in the real thing. And so one of them handles zoom on the PFD. So if I have a map on up here, so if I split the screen and I have a map, that one will control the zoom on that. This one right here handles the MFD zoom. So like on my map here, kind of pan out so you can see, if I start turning that, you'll see how it'll zoom in and out on the map there. So that handles that knob. The GTC also allows for it to be a touchpad. So if you're using it in the virtual cockpit, you can do that as well by pushing in on one of the encoders. I don't remember exactly which one it is on the real thing, but I have it mapped to this knob to where when I push that, you'll see that it will bring up the touchpad there, and then you can use that touchpad then to move your location on the map. So that's what that does. And then this MFD select is when I have the screen split. So if we put traffic map up there as well, this MFD select will then allow me to navigate back and forth between which one of those maps is active, and then you know, if I want to zoom in with the active one, that's what that knob allows me to do. So the last page on here is basically the power button for this one. So when I'm ready to shut everything down, I will just swipe over to this last page, hit that, and it does that power on and off cycle like I showed you. So that's basically it. Those are some of the main questions that were asked about how to do that. Again, I'll link the AAO software and also the Stream Deck plugin that I used for those, because that is what is, I mean, that's 90% of it right there. Is once you get that stuff set up, you're good to go. But then, like I said, you do need to tinker with it a little bit and kind of make it your own, because it's not just going to be a plug and play for every person for every setup. But it's not too terribly difficult. The Lorby AAO software, it can be a little involved. There are some tutorials out there on how to do it. So, and he also has a pretty good manual that comes with it. So I would say definitely take a look at the manual if you've got some questions with it. But it's a good software, in my opinion. That's what, I'm not saying it's the best or it's the one everybody should use. It's, like I said, before I started doing this, I had no idea about any of this. And it just so happened when I started looking it up, like, hey, can I use a Stream Deck to control my cockpit? The first thing I came across was AAO. And so I started using it. I'm sure you could do the same thing with SPAD, or I think the other one's like FSUIPC. MobiFlight is pretty powerful now at this point as well. So there's a lot of options for the different softwares you can use out there to run home cockpits. And so this is just the way I use it, the way I have everything set up. And so just wanted to answer those questions, and I think that is pretty much it. I haven't done too much else to this since the last video, just buttoned up a few things here and there. I am going to add, I used to have this wireless keyboard and trackpad on here that I use, and then I just keep it stored right down here when I'm flying. I'm not a big fan of the trackpad on it. It's a little annoying here and there when you're trying to use it. It's not the best trackpad in the world. So I did get one of these that are wired, and I feel like it fits pretty well right here. And so I'm thinking that I'm going to mount this right here and have that be the trackpad controller. I don't really need the keyboard unless it's something that, I guess maybe VATSIM, if they want you to type a message back to them, I may need to use it for that. But otherwise, once I get the flight going, I should never really need to use the keyboard. So like I said, I'll just keep it stored back here kind of behind me, behind the pedestal. But I think this main trackpad right here is going to be a winner. So it does have a cord, so I'm going to have to figure out a way to try and keep it down under here and get it run over to the computer. And so I'll figure all that out. But yeah, that is kind of the video for today, and answering, those are some of the main questions that I got. If you do have other questions and I haven't answered them, let me know. Again, in terms of like tutorials and stuff for step-by-step of how I did the Stream Decks, or the tiller wheel as well, you know, doing the potentiometer, even the the buttons, all of that sort of thing. If that is something you guys want to see, let me know, and I can work on putting together a video for it. I'm not great at tutorials, so I'll preface it with that. But I mean, this is all stuff, again, like I said, I had no idea how to do any of this when I first started. So it is stuff that you can figure out, and just through looking online and reading and asking questions in forums and that sort of thing, you can absolutely figure it out, because I'm proof that, I mean, that's what I did. I had no idea about any of this stuff before I started building this cockpit. But yeah, I think I'll end it here, because that pretty well covered everything, and there's no reason to make this any longer than we need to. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and yeah, stay tuned to the channel, because we're going to be starting some live stream flights and just some normal flight videos that I record and edit as well here from the home cockpit. So those are going to be starting real soon. So look forward to that, and yeah, otherwise we will see you guys later. Thanks for watching.